Let's go now to Tony's program, AEW from last Wednesday night, before we talk about the SmackDowners and things and such of that nature. Because, and actually, I remembered Vikingo, but it was the discount Vikingo, Commander. That was on this program. Because basically they do the same shit, and they both wear a mask and mostly a full bodysuit. So, what the fuck? The confusion could be easily understood.
They're very different. Vikingo does a lot of spectacular things. Commander's thing specifically is the running of the ropes, which it doesn't matter when or how far away someone is, he's going to do it, no matter how long they have to wait for him.
Well, and they're going to be there when he fucking lands. I'll tell you that, too. No, here was the thing. The AEW Wednesday night, July 12th, starts out with Chris Jericho versus Commander with Alex in his corner. And the story is not the match. We'll talk about a few things in it.
Oh, it was great.
But
it was the best Jericho match I've seen in forever.
Why would you book this? Why, if you were Tony Khan, why would you book this? If you're Chris Jericho, why did he not tell him not to book this? And I believe I have the answer. But here's the setup. Here's what people saw tuning into this program. If they're tuning into AEW Wrestling on a Wednesday night, they see Chris Jericho, former WWF champion, major name in the business. He comes out playing his song. He's a name. The fans are singing the song. He's the heel, but they're cheering the shit out of him because he's Canadian and they're still in Canada. My God, somebody needs to send these people a fucking care package, or maybe we can do a hostage trade. They're still in Canada. But Jericho's Canadian. He's over in this fucking crowd. And then I can see where if people were watching television, they think, okay, here's Chris Jericho. I know him. Here's a wrestling program. The people are cheering for him. Let's see what's going on. And then here comes a pipsqueak in a mask, wearing a blanket, with an obnoxious heel manager that we don't really know who the fuck he is, and he doesn't speak anymore. And the entrance is so underwhelming that even the people in the arena are staring blankly. And they try to make up for the fact that nobody knows who the fuck this guy is by reminding us via B-roll in the entrance that this is the guy that does the synchronized diving with no swimming pool. Because that's what they just show him doing that. And I wrote, why would you book this? Style clash. Even if you think Jericho is still tearing it up in the ring, his work is still great for whatever reason. Commander does his shit with other small guys who can fly, and Jericho can't do that. And Jericho is old enough now that he needs to work American style and smart or logically, and there's no way in fucking hot hell that Commander can do that. So the only thing that I had to summarize this was that Jericho wanted to work with and beat another of the guys that the Indie Mud Show fans are loving and digging on this month. And he was really willing to risk this fucking guy landing on his face, which he almost did, to do that. Because there's no other, this couldn't have possibly been a good match, and it meant nothing for Jericho to beat this guy, except to Jericho.
Well, Jericho's lucky. You said he had to worry about the guy landing on his face. Typically, the guy just lands right next to Jericho, it seems like.
Well, that was the way it ended up in this one. But anyway, and this guy can do amazing flips and handstands and gymnastics. And maybe he should pursue Cirque du Soleil. Maybe Kenny's got an in there. He seems to be a regular patron. But when Commander actually does a move, well, he didn't do any particular wrestling moves, but when he does any move to somebody, it either misses, it barely connects, or it looks like a herky-jerky tater. His strikes are rotten. The basics are non-existent. You can't even tell, the other guy has to stand there and watch him take 30 seconds to get wherever he's going and come off, or sees him coming from a mile away. And here's the thing. This is not Rey Mysterio. There's no split-second timing. There's no physical charisma. There's no fire and energy that you can see of facial expression even through the mask. There's no the specialness of Ray. There is this tiny guy in a mask doing gymnastic moves to a guy in a wrestling ring. And Jericho would let him do some shit and then cut him off and slow it down. And then Commander would open up 100 miles an hour again to do something, and Jericho would shut it off. But as it went on so long, Jericho's flipping the crowd, double birds constantly. Did that make the list? They didn't even say anything about language or vulgarity.
Not yet.
At one point, Jericho took a bump off the ropes and landed, and then obviously scooted into position and waited motionless with his arms out, laying there for 10 seconds while the Commander did a tightrope walk, backflip, splash off onto him. And then he did the deal where he walked the top rope from corner to corner, jumped off the other top rope, flipped and spun in the air, and Jericho waited with his arms outstretched on the floor to catch him, and Commander went right past him, and Jericho went down anyway. But the biggest one, and this was on Twitter, Jericho's laying there in the ring, again, flat of his back. Commander turns his back on Jericho, jumps to the top rope, springs boards off, and turns around into a flipping 1.5 revolution cannonball. And apparently Jericho saw as the guy was coming fast and out of control, this is going south, and you see him start to put his arms up like, oh, fuck. And Commander, instead of splashing Jericho, which apparently was going to be the move, he undershot his rotation and just landed on his feet and ass right next to Jericho, slapping Jericho on the stomach with his right hand in the process. And then covered him and got a 2 count.
It was worth it.
He fell on his ass right next to the motherfucker, barely touched him, and Jericho still lets him cover him? Was he just wanting it to be over with quickly at that point? So anyway, Jericho got him with the walls of Jericho. 13 minutes, bell to bell. Somebody do the research. Did Chris Jericho, at one point in his career, win the WWF title quicker than he just beat Commander fucking Farquhar here?
I loved this match. I put on Twitter that it was my favorite Jericho match in a long time. People couldn't tell if I was being funny or being serious. Both. I'll be honest, I think Jericho looked good in this. Commander looked awful.
Well, was it the grading on a curve? Was it, yes, Jericho was laying the chops in. He was controlling as best he could the fucking tempo, but did he just look good because the other guy was just shit?
I think it was, you're right that Jericho shouldn't be working the style that he does at his age and his physical abilities that he has right now. But he certainly shouldn't be working this match with this guy. And that's why I was looking forward to this match when they announced it, because I couldn't even imagine, like, how the hell are they going to do this? And I almost felt for Jericho, because there were a few times you saw him standing there just looking, waiting for this guy to run. And like Vikingo, it's one thing, because whether it's holding onto your wrist and doing the jumping on the ropes or just doing incredible flips onto a downed opponent, that's one thing. When you have to, every single time, we've seen it now multiple times, catch your breath, make sure you don't fall, get your balance. The other guy's standing there either waiting or laying on the ground and looking up, waiting for it to happen. And then the guy weighs 130 pounds, so it doesn't look that great. It wasn't worth it. He missed everything. Every time he jumped from the ring to the floor, he landed next to Jericho. And he's a little guy. I mean, that's the kind of guy you think Jericho can actually catch and do something with. No, every time. Jericho looked fine in this, I think. But Commander, to me, and I know he's one of the top young lucha guys right now, I've seen everything he does, and it's unimpressive. The only thing that's impressive is the tightrope walk, and I've seen that.
Well, that's impressive, but not in the context of a wrestling match. It would be impressive if somebody came out and painted the goddamn Mona Lisa, in the middle of a wrestling match, but it wouldn't make any sense.
So I got a kick out of the match for what it was. And like I said, I was watching it. I thought The problem was Commander's very limited in what he could do, and he's really just a high spot guy, and we've seen what his high spots are. And Jericho's working with a guy that the style is just going to be such a ridiculous style clash. What's he going to do? I thought Jericho did as good as he could.
Well, it wasn't over. Because here came Don Fallas to the ring with his microphone. I love his entrance music. It's the only sound that could be as annoying as his voice. Don wants Jericho still to join the family, the Don Callis family. And he played a VTR on the screen of a Tony Condello show from 1995. And there's Jericho and Callis doing a promo with Bad News Alan Coage. And both of them say that Bad News Alan, and of course this is complete bullshit. We didn't even hear what they were talking about. But both of them say that Bad News Alan made them promise to stick together. And they should honor their promise. And Don leaves Jericho with, you know what Bad News would want. Bad News would want his name not being mentioned on this program, probably, but nevertheless. So we're continuing to milk that, and there's going to be, later on, Hager's going to have a problem with Jericho. Hey, what's the matter? What are you doing? Is Jericho going to leave his stooges to join another group of stooges is our mystery. And this is not exactly replicating the Bloodline saga.
No, it's not, and it's a little too hokey for me. Just want to follow up on something we just talked about. On the Drive-Thru, we talked about Dave Meltzer and his star ratings and the coverage certain people get. And I brought up Jericho, that none of the bad stuff ever gets called bad. Everything is good. Jim, do you know what star rating CM Punk versus Samoa Joe got from Dave for AEW Collision last week?
I do not know.
3 3/4 stars. Punk versus Joe.
Punk versus Joe, 3 3/4 stars.
FTR versus Jay White and Juice Robinson, 4 3/4 stars.
4 3/4, brilliant tag team match. He just couldn't give it 5 because they weren't his personal friends.
And again, he says, according to that interview, 4 3/4 is 5. It's practically 5. Celebrate it like it's 5. But there's a gauge. The Punk match, 3 3/4. The FTR match, 4 3/4. Jericho versus Commander, 4 stars.
What?
How, in what world was that a better match in any way than Joe versus Punk? In what way did it mean anything more than Joe versus Punk? In any way, how could you even
when they're just doing shit and missing each other blatantly to where the people even react to it? They reacted to it when he fell on his ass. They were like, oh.
He gave that Adam Cole Jericho match that everyone agreed was one of the worst matches anyone had seen. 3 and 3.5 stars, whatever it was. Jericho never gets any of his bad shit called bad in the Observer. 4 stars.
Jericho and Commander, 4 stars.
I told you I liked that match. I give it 3 stars. And they missed a bunch of stuff. I wouldn't rank it higher than Punk versus Joe. That's ridiculous.
Well, speaking of ridiculous, in 30 seconds, Hook chased Jungle Boy out of the parking garage again. And that was all we saw of them.
It seems like
he can't get out of the car.
I think they can't get into the country. I'm guessing they filmed all this stuff with them in the parking lot of some arena right before they came to Canada.
Ooh.
And that's why every week it's the same thing.
Well, there you go. And it looks like the same SUV, too. So maybe he's just been driving around in circles. Anyway, they had another bro session with MJF and Adam Cole. And as we mentioned, I'm not going to go into it in great detail because we said it last week, and now you can actually hear the podcast. These are entertaining because most of the show's not, and MJF is on it. But they're obviously phony, and I'm not sure that the world champion should be doing obviously phony comedy. And here's the thing. At this point, we now know that Adam Cole will end up turning heel and joining MJF in some kind of loose alliance or friendship or whatever, if not a tag team, because the alternative is MJF would have to turn full-fledged babyface through this thing, which is insane, or he'll have to turn on Adam Cole, which would make Adam Cole look like the biggest sucker of a fucking gullible babyface ever in history.
That's right.
So But at the same time, if they're going to switch Adam Cole from one of their top baby faces to a heel, I'd like to believe more of this. I'd like it to not be so preposterous and done obviously for entertainment rather than real interaction that they are having that's entertaining. I'm not saying they should be sitting around talking about stock market, but don't make it obviously phony. Make it like it's happening between them. MJF fucks 4 girls because Adam likes Britt, and then Adam wants to play video game. What?
Just your description of it was pretty funny.
Well, when the 4 girls walk in and MJF says, hey, 2 for me and 2 for you. And he says, no, I really care for Britt. Okay, then 4 for me. And he goes and fucks the 4 girls. And then comes back and Adam Cole wants to play video games. But MJF ends up liking it because it's more fun when you're playing with somebody else. He's never had a friend. And then there's a dramatic close-up of his face. And then Adam says, well, I intended to turn on you. And MJF says, well, I did too. But now Adam says, I think you're cool. And Adam, blah, blah, blah. So they're going to win the tag team tournament. And something's going to happen. But again, I want to believe it more than just these lighthearted MJF is great at everything he does because he's so quick and the delivery. But this is your... Punk's the biggest star. MJF is the biggest star in the company because he's the world champion. Punk's the biggest name. But they're naked, top babyface, top heel. Don't fucking put them in goofy 80s video movie montages. All right, what'd you think?
Well, my thoughts on this are separate from my thoughts on the match and their interaction with the match later on.
Oh, yeah.
I think this would be, for me, from my sensibilities, this would be a lot easier to take if they acknowledged the camera. Hey, we're here. Mean Gene here on the streets of New York with Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch. Yeah. Something to acknowledge that the cameraman's right in front of them, either while they're playing video games or while they're in the bar. I'm not against, with that caveat, these bro bonding videos, although maybe, like you said, it's a little over the top when 4 women walk in, MJF immediately walks away with them, comes back zipping up his fly, then the camera's behind the TV.
He should have a Velcro fly for easier access.
And I think a lot of it would probably be a lot better if it wasn't in the middle of a wrestling show. Because both guys, you said MJF, even Adam Cole, I gotta say. Because I really don't like the sad, unhappy, commiserating, whatever it is, the desperate Adam Cole we've seen in the last few things. I like this version of Adam Cole a lot better. I thought he was good, but they're trying to establish something. It's not the way I would do it, but I didn't hate it.
Well, speaking of something we can all hate, the tag team tournament match was next with Darby and Pockets against Garcia and Guevara. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, 16 minutes of TV time for the mascot and his match this week. Then the Nick Wayne video. And when's his match come up? To
the end of the show. That was the last match, wasn't it?
Okay, well, I'll talk about the video now.
Yeah.
It was in his dad's ring at his house in Washington. And his kid's 18 years old. His father was a wrestler that trained him, also trained Darby Allin and Swerve Strickland. And he did an interview, not an interview here, but this was Nick Wayne sitting and talking about his father's death and him continuing the training. He's 18 years old. He speaks well. It needs more oomph, but he's a quiet kid. It was a nice start. And I thought they finally let us hear from a guy before he debuts. And of course, he's debuting with a lot of buzz and blah, blah, blah. So this was good. He spoke well enough, even though he had obviously prepared his remarks. You would expect somebody to, a teenage kid, blah, blah, blah. He spoke well. He's got a great story. They're hailing him as a prodigy. I'm thinking, boy, I haven't seen any of him ever. So I'm thinking, boy, are they building him up? Are they setting him up for failure? Or are we going to be blown away? I'm interested and I'm open. Let's see what the fuck's going on. And I've recently been emailed by somebody that would know that said, yes, he can work. He has been trained to work. So we'll see what happened. But this was what they ought to do with guys to make them more human. You've heard his voice. You've heard him speak before you see him wrestle. It establishes a better connection, right?
Yeah, again, my thoughts on this are separate from my thoughts on the match later on. I thought this video was fantastic. I thought this video was perfect. And it certainly made him a sympathetic figure, someone you wanted to root for. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah. We'll get to the match in a minute. And then we were in the back with Renee Moxleygood, with Adam Cole, and Roderick Strong comes in and asks, you're not seriously starting to like this fucking guy, right? And Roddy's in the sling. He's injured. Cole and Roddy been together for all these years. They've been friends. Right now, Roddy sees MJF for what we all know him to be. But Adam said, well, he's not half bad. And then Adam gets another text from MJF. And oh, wait, I got to go. And he calls MJF, Max, you're not sick. Come on. Because he had seen Big Bill in the locker room and was trying to get out of the match later. And Roddy's obviously got stink face. But again, it's making Adam look gullible, if not silly. That it's the silliness is so over the top, but he's playing it straight. I don't know how other to explain it than that. Anyway, the tag team tournament match was Brian Cage and Big Bill with Prince Nana against MJF and Adam Cole. And obviously, this was another showcase again. It wasn't a real match, and you can't have one with Brian Cage for one thing. But it was all to showcase the personality conflict, the odd couple, starting to gain a broship with Cole and MJF. And a lot of this has to be MJF because it's got his fingerprints all over it. And it's fucking great stuff. This kind of shit, without the obviously stagey Hollywood-produced vignettes, this kind of match is how you would have told the story in the territory days. And this works. It was like a Tennessee spot show. It was the complete antithesis of any match you ever see on AEW, and it was a wrestling angle storyline match where MJF tries to body slam Big Bill but hurts his back and tags Adam Cole in and starts to walk out, but Adam's got to all come back. And then they do the push-up contest with Adam Cole and Brian Cage. And MJF tags back in, and once Big Bill and MJF teases the slam and hurts his back again. And then Big Bill dares MJF do the push-ups. And when he does, he kicks him in the ribs. It's a Tennessee spot show in Rabbit Ridge, Kentucky. Except it's on national TV. Anyway, they went a few minutes. They went to the break. They came back, and within another couple of minutes, finally MJF worked into Bowed Up, bit the finger of Big Bill, and body slammed him, and the babies went in the air from this crowd for a fucking body slam. Because they milked it and worked up to it. And then MJF went back and forth with Cage and hit an eye poke and a hot tag, an actual hot tag to Adam Cole. And Cole does the comeback, including the eye poke. And then they milk, are they going to hit that sweet double clothesline? But they get hit with them. But finally, MJF hits the heat seeker, which is, by the way, another thing they better not have banned, because that's not even a pile driver. Fucking morons. And then Cole hits the knee, 1, 2, 3. They did 7 minutes on the air, and they did nothing. And it was the best fucking match so far on the show because you actually paid attention to what was going on. But they did it's what it's supposed to be a match. They did what they were supposed to do. They're telling the story. It just happens to be the closest thing they got to the bloodline, and that ain't necessarily a compliment, but it's entertaining watching MJF run around and hot dog and do his thing. Your thoughts?
I thought this was great. This was exactly the kind of thing I think this show needed. I said before, and this is the week I liked their stuff the most, especially the match. The match was excellent, and it was all about the energy. And I think Big Bill's actually all right. I know he gets a bad rap.
If he had a name and an outfit and some reason for existing, besides just standing there being 7 feet tall.
Yeah, he ain't terrible. So I think he gets a bad rap. But I love the energy here, and the crowd made this work, and the crowd wants this to happen. They want Cole and MJF to be together, but there's a big difference between this kind of reaction and playing with it and the calls from Chris Jericho and others last year to turn MJF babyface and act like a babyface and be a babyface. This is a way to kind of have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, because that down deep he's still the same devil, but he is doing this for the attention and to sway a potential competitor into being his fucking friend.
This is also the best thing for Adam Cole. I'm convinced now after watching this match, Adam Cole with MJF, it works. They work well off each other. It looks
more talky, less worky.
Looks like they're having fun together in the ring and in these segments, I'm assuming. I'm intrigued by Cole versus Roddy. They got me interested in seeing what's going to happen there. And like you said earlier, if it goes the other way and we end up with just MJF turning on Cole, Cole looks awful.
Oh, God.
If it ended up with Cole turning on MJF, I don't even know what to think about that.
Oh,
So I think it has to end up with Cole and MJF together. And I think even though it seems expected now, it's still the right thing.
Well, sometimes you expect the right thing. Just because the sun comes up every morning doesn't mean that it's got one day. Well, let's not have the sun. People will be amazed. And then anyway, they did the interview afterwards. They got the microphones. MJF got the fans to do Adam Cole's Bay chant, put their T-shirts over. Double clothesline has got the fans to chant for a double clothesline. And then Adam says, I never expected this team to work, but it has. And they're going to win the tournament. They're going to get a tag title match on Collision on July 29th, apparently. So it will be, that might be interesting.
If it's FTR with the belts, and I can't imagine they're going to take the belts off FTR.
It'll be FTR against Cole and MJF. And one would think that some shit would have to hit the fan. And that's the serious show. So it might be good. But they're better than you, baby. All right. Speaking of better than him, here's someone who everyone is better than, Jake Hager. In his stupid fucking purple hat with Renee Moxley good. This guy has soaked Tony Khan for a fortune. Think about the number of matches he's wrestled in 4 years and the importance he has meant to this company. Has anybody ever been, if he's made $5 a week, has anybody ever been paid more to mean less?
But Jericho likes him.
All righty. So Hager, in his stupid purple hat, goes into Jericho's locker room and confronts him in a very non-confrontational way about, are you really considering joining Don Fallas? And if so, well, what about us? Jake Hager, it sounded like Tony Dow on Leave It to Beaver. Questioning fucking Ward and June on what was going on.
Tony Dow was pretty good. Don't do that.
All right. And he turned in his purple hat to Jericho and walked out. Maybe that's the same thing as his notice.
Did he give notice? He gave me a purple hat.
So as hard as they're trying to make Saturday night's show good, they're now trying equally as hard to make this show completely bad. It's going to be all silliness on Wednesday nights. And we're going to have to watch Saturday to get anything serious whatsoever. Speaking of which, Ruby Soso beat Blue Sky. And then they had a world premiere video. QTV girl's name, Miscellaneous White Girl, is apparently Harley Cameron. So Harley Race had sexual relations with Dave Cameron's wife in New Zealand when he was over there dropping the...
Don't say that.
Well, she's got an accent. She's from over there. I'm thinking Harley Cameron, Harley Race, Dave Cameron, accent. She's got to be the illegitimate offspring.
Are there any other...
good Lord.
Any other historians you want to slander?
No, hey, just let me get started on that fucking Tom Burke. And so they introduced a world premiere rap video. This girl thinks she's a rapper. And the world premiere rap video was her in a bunch of different outfits, making a bunch of faces and saying a bunch of stuff, but I couldn't understand a goddamn word she actually said. And she was just hippity hoppity hippity hoppity all over the place for about a minute and a half. And that was that. You might know better than I whether someone is musically talented or not, but what the fuck are they doing here?
I don't know what they're doing. Why is she on every show? She's on Collision. She's on here. Apparently she's been on Rampage too. That's where they did that angle with her and Bowens.
Apparently she's on something, and that means the longer she's on it, the more shows she's on.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think her and Tony Khan may be getting something straight in between them.
I don't know.
Was it any good? Am I just an untrained ear?
I mean, the production, I guess, deserves a lot of credit. I can't speak to what she was doing. It certainly isn't anything I would listen to ever, willingly. Maybe if I was detained by NXT police, I'd listen to it. But I wouldn't listen to it, so I can't really... I guess if you're into that kind of thing from white Australian women, maybe you like it.
For the kind of people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like.
I guess.
Okay. Well, speaking of something that a lot of people like, we now got to the debut of Nick Wayne, the 18-year-old prodigy, against Swerve Strickland. And I wrote this at the top of the thing. The buildup that they've given this 18-year-old kid on this program, they have debuted major names in wrestling and not given them this kind of build, not given them this kind of entrance, not given them videos, multi-weeks, and interviews beforehand, and etc. And I've been told he can work and not just flip. And I'm thinking, at this point, it's almost going to be a letdown unless he's a prodigy because of the way that they've, categorized this and presented this. And I watched the first 60 seconds. And I said, well, that was aggressive parkour. But I'm thinking, okay, Swerve, he's from Washington State. They work the same promotion. They trained with his dad. They're going to do some of this, but we're going to see something to indicate that this guy's and I'm not trying to knock him, but I kept waiting to see, is he a prodigy? And here is what I would determine a prodigy in wrestling. I've said Braun Breaker's a prodigy. Nick Wayne is not blessed by the genetic or chemical gods to look like Braun Breaker, so you don't expect him to do that stuff. But Austin Theory's a prodigy. And before I go through this match, I'm just going to say this. If Nick Wayne, and I know that, again, Theory's taller, has a better physique, he won the genetic lottery, he's a good-looking fucking guy. Right? He's a great-looking guy, but Nick Wayne ain't a bad-looking guy either. He doesn't have the physique, but he's 18 years old. He might get bigger. He can go to the gym and work on his upper body. He's not an ugly young man. I can see where the girls would be attracted to him. But as far as inside the ring, if you took and you did the brain switch, like they do over in Japan with Shibata, where you take Nick Wayne's brain and put it in Austin Theory's body and vice versa, I would call Nick Wayne the prodigy because he would be working exactly like Austin Theory, but looking like Nick Wayne. He would have impeccable basics. He would have timing beyond his level of experience. He would have facial expressions. He would have the subtle intricacies that take years and a very good training program, and even then sometimes they're never developed. That's what I've looked at and seen in Theory or seen in Braun Breaker. That's a prodigy, not what moves you can do, any kind of moves, but the basics, the concept of wrestling, the timing, the facials, the body language, the working ability. Those are things that I determine when I'm looking at whether somebody's a prodigy, and I didn't see any of it with Nick Wayne because they didn't do any of it. There was not a goddamn regular wrestling move in this match that Nick Wayne used. No body slam, hip toss, arm drag. It was the rolling flips, the parkour, aggressive gymnastics. He does the same posing and pointing. And I'm not saying that I want the guy to be boiled in oil, but I'm saying he's doing the same shit everybody else is doing, the posing and pointing at where he's going to run to while he turns his back on the heel, and he's acting too full of his own shit. Now that I've done this move, I'm going to turn and puff out my cheeks and point at the turnbuckle that I'm going to run to in grandiose fashion to come off with some fucking move that it wouldn't take a split second for this guy to fucking foil and get out of the way of if he wanted to. And several times he got crossed up by the heel and looked stupid for turning his back to the fucking guy, to the point where Taz even had to mention it. Like, well, that's a show of inexperience. And I'm thinking, can he sell? Here's an 18-year-old kid with a good-looking baby face. Can he sell? Will a heel get on him and waltz him across Texas, like Ernie Ladd might say, so that he can have the pain on his face and he can reach out like Ricky Morton to the fucking audience in the front row, mouthing, "Help me," and show he's in pain and fight from underneath with some fire and passion, landing some fucking strikes that look halfway decent, like he's trying to get out from under this son of a bitch before he gets shut down again. No. They sold the moves they did to each other, but there was no prolonged set of heat that the heel got on the babyface where he could be put in peril and in jeopardy and fight from underneath, because they were too busy doing spinning, rolling, fucking flipping scissor things. And again, I wrote later on in the match, constantly turns away from his opponent. That's the first thing we would have covered in OVW in amateur class. Points where he's going to run, runs there like Kathy Rigby about to do a vault off the horse. They did the reverse poison Hurricane Rana off the top rope, him on Swerve, that's been banned. Or was that one of the banned ones, or just the got to be approved? Well, it's stupid to do it anyway. And that was a 2 count. And then they went to the top again and held on to each other visually, obviously for balance and cooperation. And then Swerve powerbombed him off the top rope. When they landed, he folded the kid in half and didn't even cover him. He ran to the ropes, and the kid comes up to his knees after a powerbomb off the top rope. Comes up to his knees and waits for Swerve to jump up and hit him with a leg slap kick to the head that looked 1/10 as deadly as the powerbomb. 2 count. And the fans of the phony video game wrestling genre were chanting, "This is awesome," because it wasn't their fucking vertebrae that they were destroying by the time they're 37 years old. And then Swerve hits some other kind of fucking move, 1, 2, 3. Right result, obviously, you can't have an 18-year-old kid come in his first major fucking promotion match and beat an established guy. But it was a ridiculous match. And I have no idea now, no more than I did when I started, whether Nick Wayne can work or not. He's a world-class gymnast, but I have no idea whether he's a good wrestler. Because this match was everything wrong with AEW and most indie wrestling. They spent no time on the art. They spent all the time on the moves. I know that Nick Wayne doesn't look like Bron Breakker or even Austin Theory. So, looking like a normal human being, he's going to have to do more to get attention than those other guys I just mentioned. But doing more of the same shit that everybody else does will not fucking get him there. I suggest he work on his personality and his ability to sell and be an underdog and be a little teenage boy fighting in a world of men that are going to try to fucking hurt him and get the sympathy of the teeny boppers on his back. Or he can continue flipping off the fucking Cirque du Soleil wire until he breaks his neck and he's wandered around in a goddamn iron lung. Your thoughts, young Brian?
I can't add too much because I don't Entirely disagree with you. I really loved the video earlier, and it got me pumped up to see him, and it got me, like I said, wanting to get behind him. And, you know, I understand there's an argument to be made that he's working the modern style because he's working modern wrestling shows. That's what you do. I think that's part of the issue. Yeah, he's young and skinny, but he just did the same stuff most of the run-of-the-mill guys at this point do in AEW in terms of high flying. I'm sure he's better than what we saw here in terms of, you mentioned several times that you heard he can work. So I've been
told that.
I'm assuming
I've been told he was trained to, not necessarily that he elects to.
Well, maybe they thought this was the best kind of match to do for a first high-profile main event on Dynamite. I wasn't crazy about the match. I agreed with much of your assessment of it, but I really liked the video earlier in the show.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I like that video so much that I feel bad saying anything about the match.
Well, me too. I was ready to like him. And it happens. I saw the first day I saw Austin Theory. First time I said, my God, kid's a prodigy. I can't believe he's this good this quick. I will give credit. Braun Breaker, same thing. I'll give credit where it's due. Wasn't due here because he didn't call the fucking match, I'm sure. They should have got, I know they wanted Swerve because he's trained with him, worked in the same promotion, but they should have got somebody. Is there a veteran? Dustin Rhodes. Somebody that could have had a wrestling match with the kid so we could have seen what he could do.
Yeah, because the other thing is if he can only work with the guys that he's worked with, what's he going to do?
Well, yeah, because the Cirque du Soleil people can't just be like goddamn Chuck Berry when he used to travel around and just use a local backup band. You know, they have to be synchronized because all this stuff has to be synchronized. All right. We're ready for the last segment, the big announcement of Don Fallas. And he didn't thank us, guys. He just came out and announced it. I'm thinking, boy, again, the announcement of his 5th BBC member for the Blood and Guts match. This is not going to equate bloodline ratings. People are not hanging on every move of this like they are the tribal chief and his gang. So he comes out to announce the 5th member of the BBC for Blood and Guts, and he starts trashing Harpo, and here comes Harpo. And before he even gets to the ring, he's attacked by the plumber and Take a Shit. And they jump Twinkle Toes. They're beating him up, and then suddenly Pac is there. Remember Pac? Pac still works here, apparently. How long has it been since he's been gone?
Have we even seen him in this year? I don't know.
No, I think it's been more than a year. It's been well into the first part of last year.
No. He was there for the trios matches. Remember they did the best of 7.
Oh, good God. Well, I put those out of my mind, thankfully. That was still a while back. Anyway, he suddenly hits Kenny with the chair, and the announcers are going, is he the 5th guy? Is he the 5th? Because they never actually said until after they'd kicked the shit out of Twinkle Toes, and then Pac told him, I've waited a long time for this. I'm the 5th man. And then, I swear I'm not making this up, just like your quotes from Kenny earlier in the program that I thought you were making up. They get Kenny down, and they put a chair around his neck, and Take a Shit is holding him, and Pac is going up to the top, and the plumber has the microphone, and he asks him if he's got any final words. And Kenny, with the chair around his neck being held down, is laughing. See, that's what they do in a video game. He's laughing because he says, we've still got a 5th member too. Check the screen. While the chairs are at his neck and he's coughing and laughing. And then the lights go out. And now, of course, one of them's holding him. The other one's on the top rope. The other one's got a chair around his fucking neck. I think they could still hurt him if they wanted to, but the lights go out, so nothing happens. And on the screen, up pop highlights of Kota Ibushi. And for those of you, mainly most of you, yeah, that's what I said, Kota Ibushi. And for most of you who are going, who the fuck is that? Kota Ibushi is a fellow sex toy and child wrestler from the Orient who is now a former best friend and tag team partner and member of the Golden Lovers pairing with Kenny. And he's another guy that a bunch of these mentally challenged individuals that think that this kind of wrestling gets over just think is just swell. Old Coda, Idushi himself, he's one of the great ones. You can watch him on video on the internet wrestling sex dolls, 6-year-old children. Why, they have matches where they're all dressed up as I Dream of Jeannie, and bunches of them just stand around and stick their fingers up other guys' asses over and over in a circle. It's amazing the talent that this fucking nitwit piece of shit possesses. So, Kenny has now managed to strong-arm Tony Khan into flying another one of his outlaw friends from Japan over to the United States for an extended paid vacation where he gets to stink the fucking ring up too. And again, I will say the same thing as with Kenny. I don't care whether this guy can stretch the reanimated corpse of Lou Thez with the shit that he... And I have people on Twitter going, well, that was years ago he did that in a comedy wrestling promotion. Yeah, it was 1985 that Eddie Mansfield cut his head and exposed the business on fucking 2020, and I still think he's a piece of shit. So fuck this guy too. The disrespect, a supposedly legitimate professional wrestling promotion booking guys that have done that shit. I have no respect whatsoever for anybody involved. And I think that anybody on the AEW roster that does have any respect for their fucking profession should walk out and protest that this jackoff is coming in and getting stuck in a main event.
Oh, come on. No one's going to walk out and protest.
I didn't say they were. I said they should. Can you imagine that? They're doing their best, whatever their best may be, whenever they're called upon to do it. And this fucking jackoff walks in and gets booked into a big spot because he used to wrestle fucking blow-up dolls with one of the EVPs. Some of it was even in public. They did that stuff. So anyway, the lights come back on, and there's the Buckaroos and Hangnail hitting the ring, beating up the heels, and they announce that it'll be the Golden Elite. Should be Golden Rivers by IP Freely. Should be the name of their team, against the BBC. And then they apparently ended early. For once, usually they almost go off the air without a finish, but since this was just a schmoz, they ended early and they had to talk back and forth to each other. And Kenny gets the fucking microphone, and my God in heaven, he's doing the phone sex voice. He's putting over another inappropriate child wrestler and sex doll grappler and appealing to the same limited audience that has any idea who that stupid prick is to begin with. And as they're going back and forth, we know Kenny's a rotten promo, but Moxley had to walk up to the floor camera on the entranceway and just to say fuck as loud as he could into the hard camera or into the floor camera. They are just jacking themselves off with Tony Khan's right hand on this program. So that was the last segment.
That's what we call the mud line there. Yeah, Omega's not good on a mic. The people that pretend he is because he gave heartwarming speeches after his matches in Japan or whatever it is that you liked, he's not good on the mic at all. And, yeah, that's it. I'm not too excited about this. I was excited about Takeshita a few weeks ago. Now he's just lost in the shuffle of the mud line.
Well, yeah, that's it, because he came out and he had size and he had some attitude. And you could see he was an exciting babyface, but you could see he could have all kinds of potential personality as a heel. And now he just shows up to help kick the shit out of people in the group gropes that they do, that Moxley's fond of. Did anybody watch this program?
This program was watched by people. In fact, it was watched AEW Dynamite on July 12th, 2023 on TBS. It was watched by 825,000 people.
825. So they're They're still barely struggling above 800, but that's where they've been in that range for some time now. But the question, as always, is what was the attrition factor? How did they start? And who hopped off the boat?
Well, the show began. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. Chris Jericho versus Commander with picture-in-picture. If you are one of the listeners from outside of the States, when I say that, it refers to here in the States, at times, there are commercials with a very small screen with the wrestling still playing while the commercials
go ahead
are
and
playing.
explain it. Go ahead and explain it to them the way that AEW is thinking. They're thinking that our fans that watch us on TV want to see this program so bad that even when we go to commercial, if we put up a small postage stamp size screen in the corner with the commercial audio playing and the commercial taking up most of the screen, people will sit on their couch, grab their binoculars, and try to look at that little picture-in-picture just to see the rest hold that is occurring at that moment.
And I bring it up because we have heard from a lot of listeners who keep saying, I don't know what Brian is referring to, why he keeps saying picture-in-picture. But Jericho vs. Commander, picture-in-picture, 896,000 viewers.
Okay, not a good sign for their quarter 8, but we shall contend. Again, they've been starting lower. The Big Bang, I guess, has lost its appeal, but they've been starting lower and keeping more of their audience. They haven't been doing the starting with 1 million and ending with 600 and something thousand here lately, but that's not a good place to start if they're going to do an 825 average. Go ahead.
Quarter 2, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. The finish of Jericho versus Commander, the promo with Jericho and Don Fallas, Jungle Boy running from Hook, Callis' backstage promo, and the first 2 minutes of the MJF Adam Cole Buddy segment, 821,000 viewers.
Oh, boy. And that 75,000 people in the first 15 minutes went away because Chris Jericho versus Ignatz McGee, been the same thing.
Quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The final 2 minutes of the MJF Adam Cole video, and Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin versus Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia with picture-in-picture, 780,000 viewers.
Oh, good Lord. Okay,
That's pockets. That's pockets.
That's because
it's every week now.
Again, that was, hold on, where's my notes? That was after we got finished with MJF and Adam Cole. People knew, okay, MJF has been on the program, and here comes this sack of shit. Let's do something else. So they have lost 116,000 people in the first 45 minutes.
And if you watch this show every week, you're sick of Orange Cassidy unless you're one of the super in-the-bubble AEW fans.
Hey, people were sick of Orange Cassidy when they watched him the first time.
But now you've been trained to know that his matches are going to go probably 15 minutes-ish. So you know you can kind of go to the bathroom or go to the kitchen or wherever during that quarter.
How long does it take you to shit?
Well, maybe I went outside to smoke a joint. I mean, I don't know. But quarter 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m., the final 5 minutes of Cassidy and Allin versus Guevara and Garcia, the Nick Wayne video, the Adam Cole Roderick Strong backstage confrontation, and the entrances for the tag team match, 803,000 viewers.
Okay, they got 23,000 back because now we're going to have the match with MJF and Adam Cole.
And that's what we get at the big 9 o'clock hour. Quarter 5, 9 to 9:15 p.m., MJF and Adam Cole versus Brian Cage and Big Bill with picture-in-picture and the post-match promo from Cole and MJF, 883,000 viewers.
Wow! At the top of the 9 o'clock hour with the big star in the ring, and they know that some furtherance of the issue will go on, they pick up 80,000 people at the top of the hour.
Quarter 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m., the Jake Hager Chris Jericho backstage confrontation, and Ruby Soho versus Sky Blue with picture-in-picture, 802,000 viewers.
God damn.
Right back.
And they went right back where they were and lost an extra 1,000.
Quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. The Owen Hart Cup recap and Swerve Strickland versus Nick Wayne with picture-in-picture. 783,000 viewers.
And now they're trickling out trying to find something else to do because they know that they've seen what they want to see. And there's nothing more to see here.
Well, there was a little bit more to see, and that was quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m. The final 5 minutes of Strickland versus Wayne, and the promo and angle featuring Don Callis, Kenny Omega, the Blackpool Combat Club, Jon Moxley, the Elite, Takeshita Ibushi on video, and much, much more. 831,000 viewers.
Oh, son of a gun! Well, hold on here a second. Let me give them a small smattering of applause. Where is it? I keep trying to find it.
You could have just used your hands if it's a small smattering of applause.
Well, that was recorded live at the Future Farmers of America Association convention. So they picked up 48,000 for their announcement at the end. I doubt very seriously if it was anything else that was going on.
I told you the last few weeks because I wasn't crazy about it. This week I loved the match. But MJF and Cole was resonating with the fans.
And, this was a different rating pattern than they have been doing normally, because normally they start high and there may be some fluctuation in the middle, but they have dropped off horribly by the end. As we've talked about, they lose 20% or 25% of what they start with. In this case, they lost 15% of what they started with at two different places in the middle of the program, but finished strong enough to where they only were down, good God, about 5 to 7%. So that they were all over the page, but people were checking back in to see if anything would actually happen. So bravo for that, for them.